Do you remember those warm summer days when you were a child where you would go outside to your front or backyard, grab the biggest stick you could find, and turn it into something magical? Well, I did that in Terraria using the Sticks of Life mod. This mod quite literally allows you to make sticks and use them as weapons, whether they be magical or not. Like take a look at this. Look at this stick. This one looks awesome. Look at this one. This one looks not as awesome. But take a look at this one. This one looks really weird. Anyways, this mod was awesome to play, and I hope you guys enjoyed me reverting back to my childlike self. I started by mining a couple of trees just to see what kind of stick I could make out of just wood, and honestly I should have known what the outcome was supposed to be. I made a wooden stick and an acorn stick, and they were both awful. Like, the wooden stick did only 2 damage, and the acorn stick did 1 damage, but since the acorn stick had some sort of a projectile, I deemed it better. I explored to the left where I was able to find a couple of chests, and they both gave me lead, which I checked, and yes, lead can make a stick. I also found a desert where I gathered up some cacti because I knew I would be able to make a cactus stick at some point. Just before night fell, I made a workbench right there in the middle of the desert and made both the cactus stick and the stick of sparking, which is just wood combined with torches, and oh my god, the stick of sparking was so cool. I actually did not expect like this mod, the fireballs and everything, to be so cool. And yeah, the cactus stick was alright. Once I returned home, I got to work on my house, and I just made something super simple. Once my house was officially in a livable condition, I made the Starstruck stick using just stars that I found on the ground, and it was a gorgeous weapon. It was absolutely stunning, but it was very hard to aim the stars, so I didn't end up using it very much. I continued exploring, and I couldn't find a single cave on either side of my world. I only ran into Crimson biomes. There was no cave before then, so I just came back home and started the elevator. Pretty much as soon as I started mining, I got a bunch of topaz, which I used to craft the topaz stick, and this weapon was just a copy of the topaz staff, but it required no mana to use, so it turned out to be better. I mined straight down for a while and only got a handful of ores along the way, but I still have yet to run into any cave system whatsoever. It was kind of weird. When I came back up, I smelted all of my ores into bars and made the gold stick, and these little jokes under each stick are so funny to me. They're so funny to me. It turned out to be an alright weapon. I added NPC housing super early in the morning and then spent all day continuing to mine the elevator, hoping and praying that I would run into a cave system just at some point. Eventually I did run into something, but I kept on dying trying to get down. I got fed up with dying, so I made a golden pickaxe, mined some crimtane, and made the crimtane stick, and it does quite a bit of damage, and it also sets enemies on fire for whatever reason. I mean, I'll take it, but it's kind of weird. This weapon turned out to be really good and super duper useful for all the time I spent in the mines afterwards. I swear to god, I mined for what seemed like hours and found absolutely nothing. No hearts, no chests, literally nothing. Just as I was about to quit, I actually found some stuff that could be of use to me. Once I was done mining, I tried to defeat the Eye of Cthulhu, but it became morning, so I obviously couldn't. After my epic fail, I went back to the mines, not for ores, not for chests, but for hearts, and this time I was determined to get what I needed, and what do you know, I actually managed to get the rest of the hearts that I needed. Once I got home from all that mining, I took a good, hard look at my house, and I absolutely hated it. It was just so low effort, and it looked awful. So I spent a whole bunch of time, like multiple in-game days, tearing the entire thing down and rebuilding my house with some style. Just as I was about to finish my house, the Eye of Cthulhu spawned and I felt really confident in my ability to defeat it, so I obviously took it on and won. Now that my house was finally complete, I figured that I could use some wings, so I drank a gravitational potion and went looking for sky islands. I went to the left and I found 3 different sky islands, all with houses by the way, and all I ever got was the Star Fury. I literally didn't get anything else. After looking to the left, what I didn't realize was that there was a sky island literally right above my house that did contain the wings. It was really funny. Now that I had the wings, I went over to the Crimson to rock the brain of Cthulhu's world. I made an arena, broke 3 of the little orbs, and lost the fight. But it did work in my favor because I was able to kill all of the hunger and get all of the ore and tissue that way. I ended up using all of the Crimtane ore and tissue samples I got from the Hungry to make a new stick called the Blood Stick and full Crimtane armor. The Blood Stick was exactly like the Crimson Stick, but bigger and it deals more damage. Like they are literally the same weapon, but one of them's bigger and deals more damage. With all of my new gear, I marched right back to the Crimson and defeated the Brain of Cthulhu. Now that it was out of the way, I made a Deathbringer pickaxe, and just as I was about to go mine Hellstone, it started raining slime, so I figured, why not slaughter a comical amount of slimes and defeat their leader? Unfortunately, after defeating a comical amount of slimes and defeating the King Slime, I did not get a slimy saddle, so I just bought a mining potion and an obsidian skin potion, finished the elevator, and got to mining a shit ton of hellstone. Once I had all the hellstone I needed, I went back home and realized that I had no obsidian and no money to buy obsidian, but instead of going to mine obsidian like a normal person, I thought it would be easier to just farm the Brain of Cthulhu for money, and then use that money to buy the obsidian. I am so dumb. I spent an embarrassing amount of time doing this, but eventually I did get to a point where I had full molten armor and a new stick called the Hellstone Stick, and it works exactly the same as the Blood Stick, but it does more damage. Once I had all the Hellstone gear that I wanted, I began wondering, how the fuck am I going to defeat the Wall of Flesh with a true melee weapon? As soon as that thought crossed my mind, I lost all motivation to do literally anything. After pretty much just standing around for a bit, kind of pondering my place in the universe, I started doing a bit of research on sticks to see if I could make one that was either ranged or dealt a decent amount of damage, and that was when I came across the Knight's Stick. It's exactly like the Knight's Edge, but it's a stick. Looking back on all of this, the Knight's Stick wasn't going to be ranged either, but I guess just past me just didn't care for whatever reason, so I went to the jungle and began gathering spores and stingers to make the grass stick. I died pretty much as soon as I got into the jungle because I stepped on a mine trap on accident, and as soon as I respawned, the goblin army began attacking. So I decided it was best to do to the goblins exactly what I did to the slimes. Now that they had been dealt with in the best manner possible, I went right back to the jungle to continue gathering spores and stingers. After getting enough spores and stingers, I decided to continue searching for chests to hopefully find an anklet of the wind, but if you've seen any of my other videos, you'd know it's very unlikely for me to find that. After a little bit of searching, I actually found one for once, so I went home and made both the lightning boots and the grass stick. The last stick that I need to complete the night stick was the stick masa. God, I never thought I'd say stick that many times in one sentence. But in order to do that, I had to defeat the Skeletron, so I found a dungeon, built an arena, and waited until night where I defeated the Skeletron. From the Skeletron I got a new stick called a skull stick, and though it did little damage, it shot these little skulls that were ranged and homing, so it turned out to be pretty good. I spent the longest time searching the dungeon for chests and grinding enemies for golden keys to open said chests, but no matter how many I opened, I never got the stick masa. I was down in the dungeon for like an hour and never got it. Like, I explored the entire dungeon and opened every single chest in it and never got it. So because I obviously couldn't get the stick masa by like what the game was supposed to do, I used the cheat sheet mod to get it, because without it, I wouldn't be able to make the night stick, which means I wouldn't be able to make the true night stick, which means I wouldn't be able to make the terror stick, so fight me if you disagree with my actions. After all this nonsense, I made the night stick, and it wasn't even that good. I then went down to hell to farm for a guide voodoo doll, but the demon that carries it just would not spawn, like, at all. So I went to the wiki to see if I was doing something wrong, and I learned that you can just throw the guide into lava to spawn it. Which I actually didn't know, and that's like a base game thing you can do. I didn't know you could do that. So I kidnapped the guide, burned him alive in a pool of lava, and summoned the wall of flesh. After starting the fight, I realized that I did not have a good ranged weapon for this. All I had was a skull stick, and since the skulls were homing, they would only ever attack the hungry, and the hungry just respawn all the time. So they would never attack the wall itself. I ended up losing because of that. Once that embarrassing fight was over, I had a stroke of genius. What if I defeated the queen bee and got her stick, because it'll probably shoot bees? Right? So I went to the jungle, found a beehive, and defeated the queen bee, but she did not drop the stick. I went back down to hell to fight the wall of flesh again, and I lost, so I caved in and I just used a hellwing bolt to defeat it on the next try. But this is the only time throughout this entire playthrough that I use a weapon that isn't a stick, so don't worry, I won't be using anything else later on. From the wall of flesh, I got a new stick called the hungering stick, and this weapon was fucking amazing. Like I took it with me to mine altars, and when I used it on the enemies, it shot projectiles fast, it did a lot of damage, and each projectile was homing. So it was a 5-star weapon. It worked out on everything. After mining the altars, I speed ran through the hard mode ores and ended with full adamantite armor. I also made a stick using all 3 ores, but they didn't do anything other than do a bit more damage than the last one. I also ended up making 2 more sticks, the crystal stick and the pixie stick. I used them both to help me get souls of flight for wings, and I was able to determine that the pixie stick was god awful. And despite the crystal stick looking gorgeous, it also sucked ass. Now that I had all this super sick gear and I had tried all these super sick sticks, I felt ready enough to attempt the destroyer. But it was taking me so long to do damage, so mid-fight I concluded that I wouldn't be able to defeat it before the sun rose, and I gave up. The next night, I tried to defeat the destroyer using the exact same tactic as last time, and for some reason it worked this time. I was able to defeat the destroyer. From the destroyer, I got a new stick called the Stick of Destruction. It shot a strong laser, but it was super duper slow, so I barely ever ended up using it. I also made the hollowed stick out of all the hollowed bar I got, and it was just an average stick, but it dealt more damage than the adamantite stick, so I ended up using it. The next night, I summoned and defeated the twins. I got a new stick called the Twin Stick, and this stick was so good. Like, you don't even understand how good it was. It had 2 different modes, each associated with one of the eyes, and the Spasmatism mode, it was super mid, but the Retinator mode was godlike. This shit shot so fast and dealt so much damage. It was so good. The next night, I summoned and defeated the Skeletron Prime, and though I did not get a new stick from it, I was able to make a new stick with all the souls I had accumulated from all the other fights called the True Night Stick, and honestly, it was really mid, so I didn't end up using it. After all this boss fighting for the last couple of days, I just wanted to chill for a bit, so I went to the jungle to mine some chlorophyte ore. Once I had a bunch of it, I went home and I made the True Hollowed Stick and the Chlorophyte Stick. The Chlorophyte Stick was super duper good and looked super duper cool, but the True Hollowed Stick was pretty ass. Later that night, I summoned a blood moon and farmed turtles so that I could peel the shell off of their back and use it for armor. Once I had 4 shells, I went home and made turtle armor. Now, you might be wondering why I said 4 shells and not 3, because the armor set only needs 3. And that's because I made a new stick called the Turtle Stick, and this stick was next level. Not only did it deal hundreds of damage, but it also shot out a cute little shell that dealt like double the base contact damage. It was wonderful. Now that I was properly equipped, I went to the jungle, made a big ass arena, and wiped the floor with the Plantera. After that spectacular victory, I summoned a solar eclipse so that I could kill the Mothron and get the broken stick. Once I had it, I called off the solar eclipse, grabbed the True Knight stick and the True Hollowed stick, and made the Terrorblade, and this weapon was something else. In all of my time playing this game, I have never encountered a weapon so beautiful, yet so deadly, all at the same time. It was wonderful. I used this ethereal-like weapon to defeat the golem and made beetle armor. Once that was done, I began farming the golem because I really wanted the stick from him, like really bad, and eventually I ended up getting it. But as cool as it looked and as cool as it sounded, it just wasn't that good, so I just hung it up on my wall with the rest of them. Afterwards, I went and defeated the lunatic cultist to start the celestial events. The cool thing about this is that in the base game, each pillar is dedicated to a specific class, but this mod adds a unique stick for each pillar, so I was about to obtain some sick ass sticks. I started with the vortex pillar, and can somebody let me know if my game is bugged or something, because I do not remember having to kill 150 enemies per pillar in the base game. That just seems like a crazy amount to me. Anyways, I took down the pillar, but the enemies just wouldn't let me grab the fragments. Like I was like stuck in the air, and they just wouldn't let off. And for whatever reason, by the time I was able to actually grab them, they had completely vanished. They just disappeared off my map. I don't know what happened, but I was just gonna have to deal with it. I moved on to the Stardust pillar, and once it was taken down, I made the Stardust stick, and it was alright. I mean, I tested it on the Nebula pillar, and it looked really cool and dealt a lot of damage, but it was just kind of hard to like actually hit enemies with it. Eventually, I took down the Nebula pillar and made the Nebula stick, and at first I thought this weapon wasn't very good at all, because you just shoot a single ball. But this stick had that dog in it. Like after using it a bit more, I realized that I would shoot one ball, and a bunch more would just come to where that ball hit. It was awesome. Now that 3 of the 4 pillars were down and I only had 1 left, I started preparing to make the final stick, the Stick of Life. And what's cool about this one is that I can make it before pre-Moonlord. I can make it before I defeat the Moonlord. So I went and defeated both the Plantera and the Queen Bee to get the Plant Stick and the Bee Stick, and I made both the Spore Stick and the Copper Stick. Afterwards, I made an asphalt path and began taking down the Solar Pillar. Once it was taken down, I had very little time to act, so I teleported home and quickly made the Stick of Life. I also tried to make better healing potions as well, but I just ran out of time. Once the Moonlord spawned, I began to use the Stick of Life, and I came to the conclusion that this stick was ass, like really ass. Not only was it not homing, but it was also insanely inaccurate for whatever reason, and the only redeeming quality about this was its weapon damage, but none of it mattered because I ended up losing. After my loss, I decided to make the Solar Stick and the Vortex Stick because I wasn't actually able to use them before I crafted them into the Stick of Life, and these were the 2 best sticks of the game. They were both homing, they both shot a lot of projectiles real fast. It was wonderful. The stick I ended up sticking with, get it, no, okay, sorry, was the Solar Stick, and I used it to take down all of the pillars again and to defeat the Moonlord. Once it had been defeated, I was technically done with this playthrough, but I really wanted to see what the new stick from the Moonlord would do, so I began farming him, but he just wouldn't drop the stick, and it was really annoying. After like literally 15 tries, he finally dropped the lunar stick, and I used the stick to defeat him one final time.